Is the Friday night late night show featuring Ben Pritchett, aka Natural Slugger, and Jordan Case, aka Sexy Pants. Jordan is he's a bad boy and did not bring his microphone,
Nope.
and so he's going to have to basically yell the whole show. Or he can just let Ben do all the talking, because I'm pretty sure that Ben can fill up an hour's worth of show material. Um, some fun college games today. I'll go ahead and give a shout out to Jordan because his article did pretty well, except for old Dieter,
Yeah.
um,
He can
old
die.
turd.
Oh yeah,
Die.
there's too many jokes with that, buddy.
Nice.
With that name.
Hmm.
But yeah, and hopefully Ben's article will do work
Sure it will.
tomorrow. How do you think the games stack up tomorrow?
Yeah, I think that they're pretty fun. I spent a lot of time on these slates. It was more of a I just wanted to enjoy this last week where we can really dive into a deep slate because we're fixing to hit into championship week and then bowls. It gets a little thin here coming up, but yeah, it was fun to see the little possibilities that are out there. I know Jordan's probably started to take a look at it, but he was charged with nailing down the Friday slate, which is fun. I wish I would have been off today to get to enjoy the college football with you guys, but I'll have
It
to
wasn't
enjoy
very
it tomorrow.
enjoyable.
It wasn't.
It
If
was
you didn't have
annoying.
Western Kentucky and Marshall, it was not enjoyable for you. Or yeah, you could have Marshall Devin Johnson and it not be enjoyable for you either.
Yeah.
That was unfortunate, but it's process over results because if you roster Devin Johnson and you saw that his backup put up 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, you should still feel pretty good about that play. Um, but as we're diving in, hey Jordan, since I guess I'm hosting this thing, since we don't have little Matic with us,
Little
let's
Matic.
just go ahead and start digging in, and make this I guess a little bit of a quicker night. So let's look at this early slate. Um, lots of different ways you can go. I see. My first instinct is to start with the mid tier guys. I'm wondering if you've gotten a chance to look at it yet, to
Yeah.
where you're leaning. I've already made one roster, so I know who the first guy is that I slotted in my quarterback. You tell me yours, and I'll tell you mine. Who's the first quarterback that you put into a lineup for tomorrow?
Well, the first lineup I ended up with had Christian Stewart in it.
Okay.
But there are several other guys that I like a lot. I know Marquise Williams was the initial guy that I saw that I wanted to play, but he's really expensive.
Yeah.
But Christian Stewart ended up in my lineup first.
That's kind of what I wanted you to say, because I put in Jared Goff. It's kind
Yep.
of same game, same price point.
I
And
like that too.
I think that's where people are going to go. I just think that the way you're building your rosters, you're going to kind of find yourself in this Dobbs, Goff, Stewart range on FanDuel. So Dobbs is priced like ridiculously high on DraftKings, so he's not really a cheap option there. But this is where I found myself gravitating towards, and I think the people will as well. Not saying you can't go with a Bryce Petty or a Marquise Williams or even a Jake Waters. All have great matchups, all have the ability to run, all are going to score points. So all great options, but if you're going to want to pull in some of these running backs and have any kind of leftover money for your wide receivers, starting with this mid-tier guys is going to be the way to go.
Yep.
We already know these top guys. I mean, we don't even need to go through that. Any of these low tier, I rank 3. Are there anybody other than those Stewart, Goff, or Dobbs that you see on FanDuel that's not a high price that maybe I missed? Maybe somebody you want to talk about?
I like Jacoby Brissett. Really stands
Okay.
out to me. He's got the matchup with North Carolina, which
Yeah.
is always conducive to fantasy points. He's only 6,400. He has disappeared at times, or only thrown like 15 passes, because I haven't watched him, but I assume their coaches are big into following game script really well. But UNC is just awful on defense. The over/under on that, I think, was like a 6-point spread, if I remember right.
Yeah, and it was like a 72
Yeah.
point total. Or it was
69.
when I. What is it now?
69.
69. Yeah, so
So,
it's one of the top 3 or
points so
4.
for North Carolina State.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that's a really good call. I think. What's his price on FanDuel? I don't have that in front of me.
6,400.
Okay, so it's just a shade below these guys.
It basically lets you upgrade from a mid-tier running back wide receiver to a top price guy, if that's what you want to do.
I think an interesting play that for DraftKings players is going to be Skylar Howard of West Virginia, seeing as Clint Trickett could be getting the bench, and he had a concussion last week, and he's still going through all that protocol. Howard looked great. There's a chance that Howard will be the guy in this game, and if that's the case, we all know the West Virginia receivers are studs. Iowa State's a bad defense. You're getting a 5,400 quarterback on DraftKings. I mean, it looks good. It looks like a really good situation on paper. So I think he's very interesting there. He's a little bit priced, he's 6,700, so he's priced more than Jacoby Brissett. I think you're really taking, you're taking risk. I'm with Jordan on Brissett. If you're sitting in that range, I'd rather do Brissett than Howard. But if you're on DraftKings at 5,400, I think that's a sneaky play. But you need to make sure he's starting.
Is he for sure? Have you heard anything about that?
No, there's no for sure. There's none of that. I was just Googling it just a little bit ago to see if Clint Trickett practiced this week, and I didn't get a chance to find that information because I got distracted by another guy I think is an interesting play. But yeah, there's nothing out yet. You just need to look at it in the morning and see if you can find anything out. They'll announce this. I don't think that they'll try to trick everybody, no pun intended, that Trickett's the play. I think Skylar Howard will be declared the starter well before kickoff, but again,
that's a noon kickoff game, so
yeah, you got time to adjust. Exactly. Another guy at that price point, we'll just touch on him, Zach Oliver, taking over the job at Northwestern for Simeon. Doesn't have a whole lot going for him except for the fact that Illinois is trash. It's a play I'm not willing to make, but he is 4,600 on FanDuel. The closest thing to a min play I could find. I wouldn't do it either. But if you're wanting to throw a GPP out there, he's going to let you get, some big name running backs like a Melvin Gordon and Telvin Coleman if you wanted to do that. So, Jordan, I think we pretty much nailed the quarterbacks. I think people, if you're going to sit in that middle range, you'll be fine. Let's go ahead and dive into the early only running backs. Who is your favorite running back in this whole slate?
Tevin Coleman, not close.
Okay, you're going with the cover boy?
Yep, I'm with you on that one.
Man.
I mean, Melvin Gordon is great and everything, but Tevin Coleman is not as good, but Purdue can make him that good.
Okay. I'm with you 100%. I've been having a little bit of a cover boy jinx of my own lately, so it makes me a little nervous. I was like, who can I tab as the cover boy that can not screw this up? And Tevin Coleman was the closest thing I could find. Yeah, second best rusher. I was listening to somebody on Twitter. I think it was Chris K or somebody was saying he was listening to the radio, and a guy was like, Tevin Coleman is the best running back in the country you've never heard of. And I was like, what?
Who hasn't heard of him?
He's the second leading rusher in the country. If you don't know who Tevin Coleman is, then you're not really following college football.
Because he plays for Indiana.
He plays for Indiana, but he's up for the Doak Walker. He should be up for the Heisman. I don't know if he'll actually get that, but
I think it's basically Mariota's now.
Oh, it is. Yeah, and that's a good point to be bringing up for thinking about using Mariota. But I think he's in the late slate, isn't he? Yeah, he's in the late slate. So we'll bring that up in a little bit. I like him. I like Coleman. I like Booker again this week. He is the center of the Utah offense. He's going to continue to be that way. Nick Chubb against the Yellow Jackets. Easy calls if you can afford to make it. Booker's like $2K cheaper on FanDuel and almost $2K cheaper on DraftKings. Who would you rather have, Chubb or Booker, Jordan?
I think I'd rather have Booker. Just
with price.
Price not a thing. I think I'd rather have Booker. Colorado is so bad. They're giving up they're over 200 yards a game, 211 yards per game against the ground.
Yeah.
Against them on the ground.
And 1.27 touchdowns per game to running backs, which isn't like crazy, but it's enough to where, Booker's going to get his. And it seems like he's been doing it every single game, whether it's with his ability to catch out of the backfield if they're losing or if it's running when they're ahead. He's just a good back.
Yep.
I think Buck Allen is going to be the play that everybody is going to be on DraftKings. He somehow got mispriced at 6,300. You're going to see a ton of guys on him. And it's not a terrible play, and it's one that's almost like you got to make it because he's 6,300. But Notre Dame, they're giving up like 30-plus points 4 or 5 straight weeks in a row. So it's one of those games where he could easily have that game, but they could just keep pumping it with Kessler. It seems like that's been their new MO is to go Kessler all the way, which I don't have a problem with. I'm glad to see him feature Kessler, but it's time to get Buck Allen a few more carries than what he's been getting.
His carries have been diminished over the past few games. Except last week he catch 7 passes, so that was okay.
David gets on to me when I try to tell coaches what they should be doing with their players, and that's kind of one of those cases. I don't understand why he's not getting used more.
He should be, for sure.
I think there's a guy that we should definitely highlight in the mid-tier of running backs that I wrote about in the article, who is just has big exclamation points around him, and that's Justin Jackson.
Yep.
And he's priced so well, 6,700, playing what most would consider the worst run defense on this whole slate of action in the early slate. So it's kind of a no-brainer play. If you're running one of those mid-tier guys out with Justin Jackson, he opens up all kinds of salary to do, Coleman and then good wide receivers. It makes a good team. Justin Jackson helps you make a good team for sure. What do you think about Justin Jackson? Or are you worried? I should phrase this like this, Jordan. Are you worried about Northwestern's iffy quarterback situation and how it will affect Justin Jackson in this game against Illinois? Because I'll say this. When Illinois played David Cobb in Minnesota and they were able to just kind of sit there and key on David Cobb, they shut him down for 3 quarters.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I don't know. I think I would be fine playing him, even if the kid is terrible, which he probably will be because he's a quarterback at Northwestern.
Mm-hmm.
But Illinois is just so bad. And like you said, they shut David Cobb down for 3 quarters, but then what did he get, like 50-something yards in the...
Oh, yeah, he had 120-something yards and 2 touchdowns by the time the game was over.
Yeah, so he was a just fine play, and I think it'll be the same way. He'll be able to wear the defense down. Because, yeah, I think you're correct when you said that Illinois is the worst run defense in this entire slate.
Yeah. All right, well... I think there's some decent low-price guys, but they're only worthy on DraftKings if you're needing a flex out. Like, I think Wayne Gallman at 4,100 for Clemson is a good flex play at 4,100. The Rutgers backs, if you want to just gamble there, I like them a lot. Excuse me. Jordan, I'm still dealing with a little bit of a cold, so maybe we should have subbed me out and kept Maddock for this show. But
he's busy with his lady friend.
Yeah, must be nice. My lady friend's down in bed, probably snoring by now. And Jordan, your lady friends are back at Kansas State above your apartment, right?
Sure.
All right. Well, anybody you want to highlight in the low tier there, Jordan?
Jalen Hurd. I think you wrote him up, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. But he has the matchup with Vanderbilt, it's Vanderbilt. Tennessee should have no problem, especially since Josh Dobbs is playing so well. I could easily see Hurd getting 15 carries just in the second half alone and approach 25 to 30 carries in the game. Shouldn't have a problem getting 100 yards and a touchdown. And for 5,500, that's cake. I'll take that any day.
Super cheap. You're just not going to see a running back that's going to get 20-plus touches a game at 5,500 on FanDuel, and especially one that's...
in the receiving game.
What'd you say?
He's involved in the passing game.
Yeah, and he's involved in it. And that's been a Dobbs thing, and it's been really good to see, and it's kept his price. I mean, he's still only 5,200 on DraftKings. I mean, that's totally doable. Yeah. He just needs touchdowns, man. I don't understand it, but the guy doesn't have touchdowns. And
I can see him getting 1 or 2 this week.
They gave up 51 points to Mississippi State last week, so
Well,
with Vandy giving up 51 points.
that's
Over-under
Dak
went
Prescott.
Yeah,
It may be Dak
Temper our
Prescott,
expectations here.
but Josh Dobbs is not that. I mean, when you factor in what he's been performing lately, I mean Prescott obviously is head and shoulders better.
Yeah.
But
I
Dobbs
understand
is
what
he's like a Diet Prescott. He really is.
Diet
I mean,
Dak.
not a lot going on with the arm, but can run the daylights out of the ball and get 180 yards and 3 touchdowns rushing the ball. Jalen Hurd can be what? Josh Robinson? Are we going to call him Josh Robinson? It's possible. I don't know.
As well.
That
I
line
think Josh
moved.
Robinson is really good.
Yeah.
The line moved from 14.5 to 17 points. So Vegas really likes Tennessee.
Big shocker. What's the total on that? Have you seen that lately?
49.
Oh, that's low.
Yeah.
Wow, that surprises me. Do they think Vanderbilt's going to get up for the first half and then fall apart? That's what I'm thinking.
Tennessee is not an offensive juggernaut.
I understand that,
It's just a
but
matter of Vanderbilt can't score.
yeah, Vanderbilt's not a defensive juggernaut either. Is what I'm saying. But
I think that's probably about right. 49. Because that gives what?
49 to nothing.
That gives 33 to Tennessee. That's probably right.
Yeah, I'm with you. It'll be about like that. 33-17 is what I'll say it'll be. I think Vandy sticks with them for the first half and then falls off.
Yep, you're probably right.
That's the way all these rivalry games are. It's good football to watch, but it's really hard to predict how these things are going to play out. Like I look at the Florida State-Florida game, and it makes me want to pull my hair out because I really don't know which way this game's going to go. I mean, I want
touch the game.
Yeah, of course you don't because you don't know what's going to happen. I mean,
because I don't want to play either of those teams.
Yeah,
like they're just not conducive for fantasy purposes, and they're just. I really have I don't like Florida State. I don't know why. I just can't stand that team.
Yeah, I mean they're not a fun fantasy team this year, but they have been like last year they were. So it's hard to adjust to see them fall so far down to this. I mean, I loved rostering Benjamin and Winston and Green.
Oh yeah,
Shaw last year. They were all fun to roster.
And that is why Jameis Winston's price was over 10,000 for the first 12 weeks of the season.
Well, I think it's pretty evident that he's got a lot going on in his mind, and he also has less talented receivers. I mean, Rashad Green can't carry the load that Benjamin Shaw and Green did last year, and he doesn't have the running back like Devontae Freeman. I think Dalvin Cook could be Devontae Freeman if they let him be, but they don't yet. Which maybe that happens this week. He's 4,100 on DraftKings. He's an interesting play.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to wide receivers. Let's do this a little differently. Let's start with the low tier. Like cheaper receivers. I want to know anybody cheap on FanDuel, cheap on DraftKings, anybody that just jumps out at you as this is the play. Last week we had a guy, and he really killed me. He made me so sad because I had some good teams, and he kept them from being great teams, and that was Vince Sanders throwing up the 0.
Yep, that was fun. I had a lot of Allen Lazard last week, and he wasn't much better.
Yeah, so sometimes that's the problem with these minimum price guys. Like Vince Sanders is a boom or bust play. It doesn't matter that Mississippi State's giving up 300 yards a game passing the ball if they don't target him, if he's not making passes, and if bad Bo shows up. So there's all those factors working against him. I want to talk about one guy, and that's Steven Anderson. We're going to talk about Steven Anderson, a 6'3", 215-pound wide receiver. TDs in 3 of his last 4 games. Definitely kind of taken over that role as the number 1 for Goff. What did you see? Like, do you see anything in Anderson that you really like, or is it just the over/under on this game, or what is it there?
Consistency, really. He's had 4 straight games over 10 points, and one of those was just 3 receptions for 32 yards. But I think is he second on the team in touchdowns? Second.
He's up there already, and he was kind of a non-factor at certain.
Yeah, he just kind of came on out of nowhere.
Yeah.
He leads the team in. Nope, second. I lied.
He's going to be very popular play, I think, as people are finishing out their lineups on both sites.
Yeah, I think so too.
Just because people are going to look at this game. Any game that involves Cal instantly becomes a game to target, and this week's no different.
I think at the same price range, Leonte Carew, however you say his name, I think he's a decent play. And Jakeem Grant, if Davis Webb, I don't know, we won't hear anything tomorrow probably until game time. But if Davis Webb is named the quarterback before lock, I think Jakeem Grant becomes a great play. Because he and Webb seem to have a lot better chemistry than he does with Mahomes.
Yeah, how weird is that? I don't quite understand how that stuff happens between quarterback and receiver.
I don't get it either.
Like, why does Jakeem Grant disappear and Lauderdale becomes an option when Mahomes is throwing the ball, but when Webb is throwing the ball, Grant becomes back an option and Lauderdale's a little less involved? It's a weird
option if Mahomes is the quarterback, though.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, but that's just a weird way to approach it. I just don't that there's no logical reason other than chemistry and
football is stupid.
So says the junior college football analyst for Fantasy Insiders. No, I like what you're going with Leonte Carew. I think his price on FanDuel is stupid.
Yeah.
And Maryland's got a decent pass defense, but it's just one of those options where like he's like Tyler Boyd. Just Lockett. Well, Lockett's not as much the number, like he has a number 2 now, but Devontae Parker. These guys that are just the passing target for their offense.
And even though Rutgers isn't a prolific offense in any way at all, he's still going to get, 7 or 8 targets?
I can't stand Gary Nova. I can't stand him. He's so bad. He put me on tilt so many weeks, like the beginning of the year last year when I was on Brandon Coleman. I don't know if anybody remembers that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was really great. That was really great for my reputation, too. I hate those guys. But hopefully, Carew was always the guy that when you had Brandon Coleman, Carew was the guy that had 100 yards and 3 touchdowns last year. Another guy that's kind of fills that void is Shane Wynn for Indiana. If they let that young guy Xander Diamont throw the ball, Wynn's going to be the target. So
he's had 2 back-to-back really good games.
He really has, and that's why I put him in there because he's 4,700 on DraftKings and a reasonable 5,400 on FanDuel, which is very good prices. All right, let's finish off with the high price dudes. Okay, I listed 4. You can go off the list. Dude, who at this range, the high price, the studs, who's the stud you're going to have or that you might want to have?
I'm probably going to have 2 different lineups, and I'll have Tyler Lockett on one and Kevin White on the other.
Okay.
I think Tyler Lockett's a better play just because of the rivalry. He's a senior, isn't he? So this will be his last game in that rivalry.
Yes.
Yeah. So all the motivational factors are there, and he's just been playing really well after he just disappeared for a couple games. He's back. He's caught 11 touchdowns 2 weeks ago against TCU and 10 against West Virginia. Both defenses are much better than KU. And while I think KU stays in the game for 3 quarters, I think Lockett will catch at least 1 touchdown. I can see easily another 10-reception game.
Okay.
I think he's going to go nuts on KU.
Yeah. I think those are great plays. I think with my first lineup I made, Devontae Parker was the one that made it in. And it's probably more because of his price is a little bit cheaper than those guys. And it just so happens that worked a little bit better with me. But Kevin White is a much better actual play if you can wiggle. Yeah. Well, I don't know about that. Oh gosh, it's a tough like fantasy and reality are 2 different things.
Better?
Amari Cooper's better.
Ooh, I don't know about that. Cooper's good.
Amari Cooper's better, but Kevin White is like a little bit better fantasy wise. But Rashard Higgins is like the best fantasy receiver. You know what I'm saying? So like you have you have this like teeter-totter of like who's actually the best, and it could be all 3. That's how I like to do it. That's the political way to.
The way I see it, Kevin White has another really good receiver in Mario Alford, who he just makes look like a scrub out there every single week.
Yeah, but see, like to me, the guys that are the number 1s and don't have a number 2, those are the special ones because
Yeah.
Alford
they get
draws
all of
some
it.
attention
Yeah.
off of Kevin White. Or if
That's
you
true.
don't, he burns you. If you just attack Kevin White still gets his 15 catches, and then Alford has 180 yards on 4.
Yeah.
So, interesting. All right, let's hit the tight ends. Lots of tight end options. I mean, just a ton of tight end options. I think this is the one week, I think of all the weeks that you've heard me do the podcast, the show, the whatever, where I'm going to be paying more for my tight end. Not saying that there's anything bad with the men plays. I just think that there's just so much wealth to be had in the Dan Vitals or the Stephen Shoy, and
Evan
most of all, Evan Ingram.
That's my guy.
Evan Ingram proved us last week that he is the guy. Going to keep being the guy. Even with bad Bo, he had a good game. So
Yeah.
you're going to go all in on Ingram, or you're going to try to get a couple other guys? I mean, is
I haven't
Tonga
quite
or
decided that yet. I know for sure I will have Ingram in my main cash lineup. I know I like David Greenidge. He's 3,500 on FanDuel. I'm not sure his price on DraftKings.
what about Jim A. Mundane? You
Any
offer
other
him?
week? I mean, he's the number one option in the passing game for KU. He's a decent play, but I think if they score, that'll be where it comes from when they score. But I don't think you need to. His price is up there with Bibbs, and
See,
Bibbs is a much better play.
I'm not as versed on the Kansas State rivalry. Is that like blood? Is that like
Yes.
it's like a fight?
Yes.
Oh, so that'd be interesting. I always want to see these little schools like Kansas just try to come up and mess with Kansas State, like, and try to ruin their chances for good.
They
Good
tried to
points.
ruin TCU's chances a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and Mundane had a good game in that
Yeah.
one, didn't he? That was like a 100-yard game, wasn't it? Something like that.
Yeah, 137 yards.
Yeah, that's sick.
If KU has a chance, it will be because of Janae Mundine. Because in the games you've stayed close in, he's caught 5 or 6 passes and scored. And the games like Baylor and Oklahoma, where they just destroyed us, he didn't do much.
So you're saying more Mundine is the answer for Kansas.
He is awesome.
Somehow that does not surprise me at one bit.
He is awesome. And he's the only receiver on KU other than J.J. McKay who isn't like 5'6".
Yeah, I'm with you. I think he has potential there, but I think Ingram's the play. I think if you're wanting to step outside the box, you can always go with Bibbs, who is, West Virginia's defense isn't great. It's not bad. He's 4,300, so you're almost paying men's salary wide receiver prices for him. So you got to kind of have him hit if you're going to pay those kind of prices for him.
And I think he's just fine as a play.
Who, Bibbs?
Bibbs.
Yeah.
I don't know if they have an actual number one between Bibbs, Lazard, and DeVario Montgomery, or more so just Bibbs and Montgomery now because Lazard kind of fell off. But it's one of those two if they actually have a true number one.
Yeah, I think Bibbs is the guy. I think he's the number one. They get the big yardage maybe to the other guys every once in a while, but Bibbs seems to be the more of the pass catcher, the leading receptions guy.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's pretty cool. How about we transition and start some of this late slate action?
Sure.
And kill this real quick. All right. So David or Jordan, sorry, buddy.
Thanks.
Sorry, buddy.
Right there.
All right. So this is like maybe the smallest slate that I've ever written up by itself in probably all of while I've been doing this writing.
Well, I'm used to.
You are the small slate expert for
I don't know
FI.
about all that.
I mean, you are, because I don't do it.
Or
You do it.
Okay.
You have to be the expert. Okay?
Sure.
So, when you attack a slate that only has, I think it's 9 games on DraftKings, and it's
9 on FanDuel.
it's 9 on FanDuel?
Yeah.
Okay, so 9 and 9. It's what's the first thing that you look at? I mean, is there a strategy that you take in, or do you adjust? Do you find like one play and then you build off of that one play, or do you find one game, or how do you start when you
I usually look to find the studs who I know they have the best matchup, they're going to score the most points, and then I work around them. Just like basically everything else, but I will more so force a guy in with a small slate. Because like on the bigger slates, if you have a guy like Melvin Gordon, on a small slate you want to force him in just to get the production from him, but on a big slate you don't have to because there are other options. But like Marcus Mariota, I might just have to force him in. Or Cody Fajardo, either one.
So you find a guy, you fall in love with that guy, and that's kind of where
marry that guy.
You marry that guy, and then you get all his receiver babies, and then you win GPPs. Wow.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I tend
everybody take that in for a second, and that's how you win on small slates. You better get used to it, because that's pretty much all we're going to be seeing for the next.
Annoying.
Championship week next week, and then bowl weeks. It's going to be a lot of that 5-4-3 type stuff. And
none of them are good games. It's all games that are going to be 21-18 and really boring.
I don't know. Sometimes you get like I think last year the Fresno wound up playing USC.
Yeah.
And so it was like, oh man, this is the best. So you could just load up in that game. But you're not going to get Washington State in a bowl. I can't remember Cal's record, but I think they're 5-6 or something like that. So they need to win to get in a bowl, which they could. They're playing BYU. They could. You need those defenses in there to have surefire 40-plus games. But
that's okay. About this small slate is we have Washington State and UNLV both. They're just pitiful defenses.
Which makes it fun, because you're going to have to, if you're going to fall in love with a dude on this slate, you need to make sure it's the right dude or you're going to lose. All right, so you're saying Fajardo is the guy, or are you saying Mariota is the guy? Because that's going to be the number one thing people are going to run into is they're first going to ask themselves, should I spend at quarterback?
Yes.
And I'm going to say yes as well. So you've answered that question, yes, at least with one of your quarterbacks you need. So then you've got to ask yourself, I see three evident ones, and that's Mariota against Oregon State. That's Luke Falk of Washington State against Washington. And that's Cody Fajardo against UNLV. Now you're going to have to ask yourself, okay, well, I'm going to spin, but which of these three guys am I going to spin for? And they're pretty much all priced close enough together where you can kind of put them all in the same area. Which one's your guy? You got to pick now. You got to pick one of these three.
I think I would pick Cody Fajardo. I have a long-running history of playing a lot of Cody Fajardo, and he's always done well every time I play him. So
did you see on my Twitter feed? I retweeted that UNLV's coach has been fired.
I did see. I thought he quit.
Well, whatever you want to call it, he quit.
He's gone.
He's gone. Going to go back to FCS and coach in Montana or one of those other schools that he used to coach for. So yeah, I think that's a good place to start. You know, when you're looking at an evident, we know UNLV's defense is one of the worst in the country. It's a bottom 3 defense, run defense. Nevada predicates itself on the zone read. Great place to start. It's the safest place to start. I think Fajardo is going to be the most highly owned quarterback of the slate.
Yep. I think Mariota can easily go out and have his best game of the season. He has yet to come out and just go completely nuts on someone and throw for 300 and rush for 150 and score 6 touchdowns. And I think this could be the game. It's his last rivalry game in college before he goes and destroys the NFL next year.
Yeah, they're scoring 45.8 points per game, and he's totaled 4 touchdowns in each of his last 4 games. Mariota has, and like you said, if they stop running the ball so much into the end zone, Mariota's stats could be just huge. You could have one of those Western Kentucky days out of Mariota, but I don't know when we're going to see it. I think Oregon State will
they'll let him loose tomorrow.
Even if they let him loose, is Oregon State going to let them loose? Is the question. I don't know. They're at home. They hate Oregon. It's going to be a little bit harder. And Mariota seems to I don't know what it is, but sometimes in an away game, in a random away game like Arizona, he had so much trouble with Arizona for some reason, and I think that's been his like bugaboo. And Oregon State could be that again. He makes me a little nervous, but just enough to where Fajardo gets more value. But Luke Falk is going to be the play that I'm going to hate myself for not making, and that's because the guy's like 500 yards and 3 touchdowns every week in a box.
That's every Mike Leach quarterback ever.
Well, I mean, if you're getting that kind of production, it really hurts not to use it when you kind of pretty much can take it to the bank, and then you're sitting here having to depend on running quarterbacks to get it with their legs. It's tough. It's something if you're playing cash games and you want to go Falk, do it.
Yep.
With it. All right. I talk about a couple cheap plays in the article. I could not find one good cheap play on this whole slate at quarterback. So if you found one and you like it and you think it's great, please tweet me. Please tell me, because I could not find it. I mean, I found some ones that are kind of iffy plays, but there was not a clear cut. This guy is, if you're wanting to just throw quarterback to the wind and just guess, this is the play. There's nothing I could find under like 6,500, which was Siler Miles.
Yeah, I think that's the cheapest you can go.
Yeah, and I'm totally fine with Siler Miles, especially if he gets a little bit of running. Washington State lets everybody do whatever they want. So
exactly.
Great play there. All right.
Maybe.
Well, maybe. Good way to bring me back in. Way to bring me back in there. Yeah, maybe. That's the problem with Siler Miles. That's the problem with Grant Hedrick. That's the problem with a lot of those guys out there.
Yeah.
That can just throw up big eggs for you. All right, let's talk about the running backs, and I want to start in the mid tier for the running backs because I think that the mid tier is the best tier for running backs on the late slate, and that's because we have 2 big ones, and that's Don Jackson of Nevada at UNLV.
Yep.
He was everybody's little baby last week, and he let him down. He's back to being a good play this week against UNLV. A much better situation for him. I think he could just run right through UNLV. I think I made the offhand, like just kind of huge hyperbolic type. Is hyperbolic a word, David? Is he hooked up? Yeah. Okay. Sure. Hyperbolic assumption said that they could get like 400 yards on them, and I think it's possible. I really do. In a day and age in college football where it's like, who is the 300-yard rusher this week? I think that you could see the 300-yard rusher come out of Nevada, but I think it might be Fajardo over Jackson.
I would love that.
I think it's possible. I mean, you saw what
they could easily rush for 400 yards together.
Yes, yeah, and you saw what Keenan Reynolds did last week with 6 touchdowns, 7 total touchdowns.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
That week is waiting for Fajardo, and in a matchup like this, he could do it. He really could. And he actually throws a bit better than Reynolds does.
He's a decent passer.
Yeah, so he has an injury to his favorite receiver, Hassan Henderson, so he's going to have to look to those other guys, which makes it a little different. But so Dwayne Washington's the other guy I really like a lot. Both those guys, you fit those guys in, you can do whatever else you want to with your lineups, in my opinion. Is there anybody mid-tier or below? I'll give you a mid-tier or below on this whole slate that you see that pops out to you, Jordan. I know I took the 2 good ones, but do you see anybody else?
I don't know if you consider it mid-tier, but Aaron Jones, he's there against Middle Tennessee, who's just not very good.
What you got to say?
They're not very good.
What are you trying to say, Jordan?
I'm saying they're not very good, Ben.
Yeah.
450 something yards a game on total, 32 points.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, you're going to see some bias. If you're ever going to see bias in my articles, it's going to come on the end of MTSU because, I never get to use MTSU.
That's why Aaron Jones wasn't in there.
Yeah. Well, I got to let you put somebody in the cheat sheets. If I put everybody in these, then Jordan doesn't get to put anybody in the cheat sheets. No, he's a great play. a little bit kind of I wanted to constrict it because I know we only have so many games, so I didn't want to rank a whole lot of players. So I try to keep it down to as minimum as possible. Still feel like I ranked too many players, but I didn't want you don't want to give people their lineups for them. But yeah, great play, good call there, Jordan. Although I'm hoping MTSU crushes them and shuts them out. We'll
Not
see
gonna happen.
if you're going to attack that game on the MTSU side of the ball, you're going to get if you get lured in by Reggie Watley, I'm praying for you, bros, because
Didn't you specifically say last week to never, ever, ever play anyone from MTS?
no, you can look it up. It was the week after Sean Bryson had like 2 touchdowns, and I think the other touchdown came out of Tucker. And I said, no, if you're going to don't try to figure out the MTSU running back situation, but if you have to have somebody, it needs to be Reggie Watley or Jordan Parker. I know I said that. You can look that up. And I said that for a reason because Reggie Watley's the fastest and Jordan Parker's the best. And Watley just happened to be the guy that went off last week. And that's how it's going to be. That's how it's going to be this week. They might have a guy, and I don't think it's going to be Watley. I think people are going to buy into Watley, but I think it'll wind up being like Jordan Parker.
Do they just put a hot hand there?
Yeah, they're very hot hand oriented. Oh, they're so hot hand, and they're not. They don't like to run. The way that offense works is the short 5-yard passes. And that's how it's always been. That's what Logan Kilgore was.
The KU offense.
Yeah, they love that crap. Let's throw it 5 yards. And Logan Kilgore last year, he actually signed with the Saints. I couldn't believe it because I watched this guy throw the ball last year, and he would dink and dunk it for 5 yards, and he was great, accurate within 5 yards. But if you go past 5 yards, I mean, it was like me trying to throw the ball out there. It was just terrible.
He's one hop. He's an Alex Smith.
Yeah. Man, gosh. But would you, if you're Drew Brees, you're like, man, thank you for bringing in the MTSU backup because my job's safe.
I don't think Drew Brees has to worry about that anyways. But
no, good point. Last guy I want to point out is Chris James, Pittsburgh. Great prices on both sites. He could be James Conner. He's not James Conner, but he could be the James Conner for Pitt this week. And he was really good last week, taking over for the injured James Conner. And if they could just gut it out with Conner, if they don't, James is the guy. Super cheap, but Miami's defense is pretty solid. Yeah. But if you're going to punt, I mean, as a running back play, that's a pretty good punt. Anybody on the high tier that you want to talk about, or should we just move on to wide receivers? You want to talk about Duke?
Yeah, Duke Johnson. He's incredible. He's like the guy.
Good analysis, Jordan.
He's the guy that goes unnoticed. Who is, I mean, he's not as good as Melvin Gordon and David Cobb and Amir Abdullah, but he's right there below them. I think he's gonna play on Sundays next year and have a nice career. But I think Royce Freeman's in play. Joey Iosif, however you say that, against that Fresno defense, anyone's in play against them.
He's high though, man. Golly, he's so pricey.
I mean, he had a nice week last week, didn't he?
Oh yeah, he gets a ton of carries, and he had a nice week.
Yards. That's UNLV.
Yes, good example there. What did he do? What was that total?
It was 35 carries for 219 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Okay, that to me is Don Jackson's not going to get those amount of carries.
No,
but that's like a safe assumption for Jackson, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so for his price point, man, that's pretty. Now, Jordan, this is a good question for you. If you're rostering Fajardo, are you rostering Jackson on the same team? Because I know that's like the number one thing that people struggle with. Do I roster my quarterback with my running back that are from the same team?
I do not have a problem with that because I know every single play, if they move the ball, I'm getting points.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with it.
It
does limit your upside a little bit sometimes, but I think it's fine.
I did that a lot last year with Hyde and Miller, with Hyde and Braxton Miller. That was fun. That was a fun combo.
Especially when they run the zone read.
Yes, which is what we're dealing with here. A pure zone read that both those guys have done really well in lately. Okay, I'm with you on all those. Waller's a sneaky play, but we'll move on. Yep. Let's start with wide receivers. Since I asked you your favorite, pricey wide receiver, this is your guy. and you were wrong with calling him the best in the country on Kevin White. Who is your favorite wide receiver for the late slate there, Jordan?
I think it's Vince Mayo.
Vince Mayo, huh?
Mayo. I love that dude. I love Washington State's offense.
You do like males. So if we're gonna get in on this, I'm totally there with you with Vince Mayo and Amari Cooper.
Yeah, I think Cooper's a fine play, but I'd rather have Mayo. Because
Okay.
he always has the... I mean,
And
last
Amari
week he showed it 15 catches for 250 yards, put up 32 points without scoring a touchdown.
Yeah, he's pretty
I
amazing.
don't think Cooper's going to do that. He might, but I doubt it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You're dealing with a number one. They have a number one at Washington State, and with a number one at Washington State, gold mine.
Oh, yeah.
So definitely the safer play to Amari Cooper. But if you want to get fancy pantsy, Amari Cooper is 7,300 on DraftKings, which is $1,000 cheaper than Mayo. Kind of tempts me.
Yeah.
Tempts me there. But then you also see Devontae Davis, who's 5,700, who's again tempting as well. So you got all these little step ladders you got to deal with, in my opinion, on this late slate. So Jordan, if you have to, who is the guy? So you said your guy's Fajardo is the guy that you're falling in love with. And this is the guy that you're going to start.
Mm-hmm.
If that's going to, if you do those other two running backs we talked about, mid-tier guys, if you just do Washington, I don't know if you're planning on doing that or not. You can easily, trust me because I've already done this, you could easily roster Vince Mayo as well
Oh, yeah.
on FanDuel. That's pretty sexy. That's pretty sexy. So we're going to have to finish.
Go ahead.
No, you're going to have to finish this lineup, which leads me into my next question. You have to finish this lineup with some cheaper wide receivers.
Devontae Boyd.
Oh, okay. So what you're going to
Super consistent.
okay. So you're going to live in this game. So you're going to have Don Jackson, Fajardo, and Devontae Boyd. Okay. I'm just curious. What's the total on that game?
It's a 64 over-under. Nevada's
Okay.
-9.
Okay.
I think Nevada easily beats UNLV by more than 9.
I can get with that. What's Devontae Boyd's price tag on FanDuel?
5,200.
Okay. That's doable. That's right there with...
This obsession with Devontae Davis. And, I mean, I know he's bigger and he's the better physical specimen, but Devontae Boyd has produced consistently every single week. Davis definitely has the higher upside because he can go out and catch 3 or 4 touchdowns at any time. But Boyd is going to go out there and catch 5-6 passes, maybe more, for 75, 80 yards.
Yeah, that price is really good. That price is really good for Boyd. It's just one of those... He's one of those guys that's not fun, and he's also one of those guys that, like, if you watched last week, because I watched it, because I had UNLV's quarterback. If you have like, he disappeared the whole first half. I mean, he really was non-existent. And then when they had to put in Decker, when they brought in Decker. No, I didn't have the quarterback. I had Devontae Davis. What am I talking about?
Okay.
But they brought in Decker, and Decker changed the whole game. And when in doing so, he targeted Boyd. And so that's a good point. If Decker's the starting quarterback, he definitely shown that he likes to throw to Devontae Boyd. So that's a very good point there.
Mm-hmm.
I like Jaden Mickens. I think Jaden Mickens is going to be the number one for Washington in this game, and anybody against Washington State's pass secondary is a good option. He's risky as hell, but he's cheap. He's cheap. He's 3,700.
I played him so many times last year. He never did anything for me.
Yeah.
It was like the 3 or 4 weeks that I didn't roster him, so he went for like 160 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like, I hate that guy.
Yeah, he's been pretty consistent a couple weeks in a row. So I don't know. I think Washington State gives him enough cushion where he could have a good game. And John Ross is also a sneaky play than that one, but I'm not going to do it. All right, we have some questions in the chat. I'm going to ask you, Jordan, since you are the short slate expert. Villeman or Bolden? That's a good question. Oregon State.
Yeah.
That's the constant question when you look at Oregon State. Villeman or Bolden? What is it?
Yeah. I answered it in chat. I think it's Villeman just because of price. But they're both solid plays this week. I think Villeman is the touchdown guy, right? And Bolden's the possession guy.
Yeah, Villeman's the big play guy.
Yeah.
I think he's averaging, I don't have it in front of me, but it's like 17, 16.8, something like that yards per catch. And you know what Bolden is.
Yeah. He's the Brandon Cooks without the... He has the big playability, it's just not quite as... Nothing close to it.
I don't know. Have you seen Bolden break a big play? I have not seen that. It just seems like he gets 12 catches for 120 yards and maybe gets a touchdown. If he does that, that's great. That's awesome. Yeah. But it's just Brandon Cooks would be like 12. He'd be Vince Mayle. Brandon Cooks was Vince Mayle. So
that just shows you how good Brandon Cooks really is.
Yeah. All right. What was the other question we have? Antoine Goodley or Mitch Matthews? For me, that's a tough one. It really is. You're gonna say Mitch Matthews, aren't you? You're gonna say Mitch Matthews.
I don't know. I love Antoine Goodley. He's one of my favorite players ever. He made me a lot of money last year.
Gosh. See, you can't be in. You got to have some recency bias.
I know, and I hate it because he's so good.
Yeah, he really is.
Getting the targets. Corey Coleman is kind of taking his job a little bit, but I think they might try to force it to him a little bit this week.
They've been forcing it to him, though. That's the problem. He's been dropping it. He's one of those guys that has seen his value dip, and if you're not rostering him, and I'm saying this, he's going to go off.
Oh yeah. Not rostering him is always scary.
A 6,500 on FanDuel, so not rostering him and choosing Matthews makes my skin crawl. Because you got. I wouldn't mind
playing both of them.
Playing both of them? Okay, yeah, I'm with that too. But yeah, it's when you're dealing with that and you're breaking it down. I think, let's see, I'm looking at mine. See, I went 2 pricey receivers with my initial lineup. I went 2 pricey receivers and Falk, believe it or not, with the first lineup I made. And then I went super cheap with my other wide receivers. So let's just jump into the last super cheap. Any super cheap guys you see? I mentioned Mickens. Do you see anybody else beyond that you like, Jordan?
I think Jericho Richardson's okay. If you want to continue to get more exposure to the Nevada.
Okay, so now we have Fajardo, Jericho.
I don't think I would do it unless you absolutely have to. I'm just kidding. They have a couple different receivers. Richie Turner's an option, and there's one more. Who's the other one?
Who are you saying?
The other Nevada receiver. It's Henderson.
Yeah, Hassan Henderson's out. Yeah. So it's just Jericho and Richie.
Yep.
So they have more value because of that. He can't spread the ball around as much.
And they're men's style on FanDuel. I'm not sure what they are on DraftKings. Right now.
They're more expensive. Richardson's pretty significantly more expensive on DraftKings. I like Duke Williams if he plays. I think he's a sneaky play. Not something you just have to go out of your way to do, but if you're just kind of throwing something into GPP, talent-wise for his price, my gosh, they don't get much better. Dorsett's stupid cheap too for some reason. DraftKings.
The Miami guy?
Yeah, Miami. Yeah, the guy who leads the nation in yards per catch, 700 something yards and 8 touchdowns because he makes like a 50-yard bomb touchdown every week. It's one of those ones that makes you scratch your heads why DraftKings has him only at 4,100, and yet they have Jericho Richardson at 4,900. So they must have a lot of matchup bias. Their algorithm. What?
I hate their college football pricing.
Yeah, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Every single week.
Yeah. It has to factor in matchup. They must see Pitt as a worse matchup in their algorithm, and so they like Richardson more. All right, let's talk about tight ends, and let's end this thing right. Not a whole lot of options here. It's basically go big or go home. I like Clive Walford a lot. I think.
Always
Gosh, and the guy is a receiver playing tight end, so you have to pay minimum price wide receiver prices for him. But okay, I'm cool with that. So
he's like a lesser version of Jay Samaro.
Yeah,
plays much better defenses and he's in an offense that's not as good.
he's definitely their go-to number one.
Yeah.
You know, inside, 15 yards, 20 yards. He's that guy.
Mhm.
They have Dorsett to stretch the fields, but Wofford's kind of taken over all the other roles that they wanted, like Stacey Coley to do, and some of those other guys. He's kind of encapsulated that, and they've started to really use him, which is great for Wofford, but not so good for the other receivers because they've just been terrible. But, all right, anybody else that stands out to you before we get into the punt, guys? Anybody up in the top guys other than Wofford? Such a small slate that it's like tight ends are just whatever.
Was it Cam Serene? Serine, is that how you say it?
Yeah.
I think he's a fine play. Duke isn't anything special on defense, and the Wake Forest offense isn't going to wow anyone, but when they throw the ball, it's going to Serene.
Yeah, I'm with that.
He's $1,000 cheaper than Clive Walford. But if you're not going to play one of those guys, I think you got to punt the position.
Yeah. Okay. I'm with you. Any punts you like?
Eric Tomlinson.
Ooh, okay. Okay, you're gonna have to tell me about that one. Why do you like Eric Tomlinson?
That is your guy. I've actually never watched UTEP play. I just know Aaron Jones runs a lot, and Tomlinson's a little bit involved in the passing game. He's caught just one touchdown this year, but he's had several games of 4, 5, 6 receptions, and Middle Tennessee is not that good.
Okay. Oh well, here we go back to bashing my alma mater. Okay. I don't know if we were supposed to do this. It's David's alma mater too, so you might get shut off of the next show there, Jordan. But no, I like Tomlinson a lot. 6'7", big guy. MTSU is the worst team in the country against the tight end. And I don't care about that stat normally, but they really suck against the tight end. So it's like so bad that they're giving up a touchdown a game to a tight end. And when you factor all that in, the fact that they're undersized, Tomlinson could get a little bit more involved. Guys already going to be playing in East-West Shrine games despite not doing anything all year long. So that just goes to show how good a talent he is. UTEP just doesn't know how to use him, and Jamel Showers is just trash. He really is. And so that's what you're dealing with if you roster him. Perkins is much safer. Perkins is going to be the way I go more times than not. But Tomlinson definitely has huge upside. I think not a lot of people will be on Tomlinson either because they'll look at his stuff and then his past game logs and then they'll walk away. Did you know? I didn't realize till I wanted to tweet this out, but I didn't know how to quite spell it. We had been saying until he broke the record by Melvin Gordon. How do you say Oklahoma's running back's name?
Samaje Perine.
Perine. We had been calling him Perine for the first 2-3 weeks. Yeah, you did it too. We can go look up the.
I did it first, and then I watched him play.
Yeah, and then you had to get the.
Perine isn't a natural word.
It's terrible. It's
Perine
terrible.
Rolls off the tongue. It's better.
Yes.
I wish it was Perine.
So we have to apologize to all the listeners out there. It's Perine. Perine. Samaj Perine. All right, guys, thank you for tuning in. I think David, do you want to close us out with any parting shots, or you want us just to shut this baby down? Uh-oh. All right, let's shut it down. Have a good night, fellas. Good luck. If you need me for anything, you can find me at Natural Slugger on Twitter. You can find Jordan at the Jordan Case. If you were wondering if there was another one, he is the Jordan Case. And keep listening to the shows. Let's get this thing going, and we'll work our way into the bowls. Have a good night, guys.
Later, guys.